It was amazing to
Yeah.
me.
Welcome to the very first edition of Live from Dream Run Camp in Flagstaff, Arizona. You can't see who's here in person, but we've got some of our dream runners, folks who have come to spend some quality time training and learning at Dream Run Camp, as well as some esteemed guests and our special guest, Lauren Hagans of the Hoka Northern Arizona Elite professional running team, who is a veteran professional runner, highly accomplished, but a debutante at the marathon distance, training her for her very first marathon. And the reason I invited Lauren to be our guest for this first episode is like everyone who's run a marathon runs a first marathon at some point. So either like you remember that experience or your first marathon is still ahead of you. It's a big step. And so there's a lot to talk about with you, but I wanted to maybe focus a little bit on like how you're preparing for that step. Sound good to you?
Sure. Yeah.
Right on. Okay. But let's rewind a little bit and start at the beginning. When and how did you first start running?
I started when I was in high school, but a little bit later. So I started right before I turned 17 as a junior. And I played every other sport that there was to play except for soccer, the one running sport that people usually get funneled into, cross country from. Um, but no, I played like I was on the junior Olympic volleyball team. I was really into tennis. My dad was a professional track athlete, but he did the pole vault. But I just went to a really tiny school, and we didn't have that sport until I was a junior. And just like growing up, on the playground, like playing tag and like mini Olympics. And I also used to like steal bases and fast pitch softball pretty easily. People were just like, "Oh, you should try like running." And then I remember, yeah, my first day. So you know how like I think it's still like this in high school. Like you have to have 5 people to score for your team in cross country. So there were 5 people on the team, and one girl was sick. So they asked me to fill in, and ended up doing really well. And I did walk my first race because I just wasn't prepared for how hard it was, and never having run really at all like that. And but yeah, I mean, somehow like perversely fell in love with the hurt of it, and I'm still doing it. So yeah, so that's really how I got started. And then I did end up my senior year of high school pretty much like dropping every other sport and just focusing on that.
You sort of anticipated question number two a
Oh,
bit by mentioning, well, no, this is good, by
yeah.
mentioning like, falling in love with it, because most people who, start running at, 17 and are still running at 36, there's a love
Yeah.
story there, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes with people who, just are gifted and are able to run at a high level, it's more like discovering a gift and then falling in love. Which happened first for you?
Oh, probably discovering a gift, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like whether I mean, I don't know, like I just think just the first cross country race and then being able to easily like just compete in high school, like I think like it's just easier like sometimes if you just feel like you're good at something to like
Mm-hmm.
see like, well, how good can I be? And then because I remember like and this is how I feel every time I start a new like segment or training block after taking time off. Like it feels so hard. Like the first couple weeks, like getting back into fitness, and like it didn't feel like super easy to me. It was just like, oh, this is really hard, but like I'm good at it. So, and then it kind of got to where like, oh, I was running a little bit more mileage and had more of those like endorphins after running. So like I don't know, like I'd probably say I think it just was going well. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was just more curious about it. And also my high school coach had run for University of Arkansas. So he kind of, could kind of like help me out with like what I was experiencing
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but probably just yeah, thought like, oh, I could be good at this at first.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And with running with no ball, it's just not as fun as other sports. So like often it's like, the gateway drug is being competitive, right? Just like,
yeah,
wow, I could be good at this.
yeah.
At what point did you start to like dream big? And how big did you dream? at that, kind of that early stage in your running?
I mean, I think I was just really naive too, because I just kind of thought like, oh yeah, like been, like I wanted to be an Olympian. Like, I literally was a walk on in college, and I went to um, my college coach Todd Harper saying like, I think I could be an Olympian one day, and he was like, okay, because like my times in high school were just not like that impressive, but I just was undertrained, and so. I don't know. I was like probably a little bit delusional too, just because like I had no like really like, I mean, I don't think I even realized like what that actually meant. It was just like, oh, like I know like the Olympians are like the best athletes or whatever. So yeah, but I mean my dad was also like a very good athlete and was very highly ranked as a pole vaulter. So I think maybe it was just my parents just instilling like you can do whatever you set your mind to. And my college coach also was just really like influential in just kind of steering me towards the right direction with training. And he was actually my in to be a walk on at Baylor University. So,
Yeah. Now that's a very interesting part of your story because
the walk on
yeah,
status.
well, I mean, just like, well, what happened after that,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of universities that have a lot of walk-ons on their various sports teams. I would say statistically, probably few of them become multiple All-Americans, which you did. And so how did that happen? Did you just, was it, more of like maturing or going from being, undertrained to fully trained?
It's probably all of the above. I
Yeah.
mean, I just think, it's really hard to predict like talent and ability when you're younger. Like, you don't really know. Like you think, like certain people will pan out, but then there are people that you just don't know because they haven't been developed or haven't been given the opportunities. But yeah, I think just because like I just started running at such a late age, I ran very little mileage in high school, and then but that was I think my high school coach's design. So
Hmm.
because I was really excited about it, but he didn't want me to get burnt out and before I even got there. And then when I got to college, again, like Todd Harbor, he did a really good job at developing me and making sure that I wasn't just like overcooked, and yeah, I just think I just hadn't really done, like different workouts, mileage, all of that. And then I do think some of it was just like, again, just being naive. Like I just thought like, I'll just do the work and then I'll be a national champion. And like
Hmm.
that didn't happen, but it was just kind of like, that was kind of the mentality. Like I'll just show up and why not me kind of thing. And really with no real basis. Cause I mean, my dad was a pole vaulter. It wasn't like we knew like anybody had any like aerobic talent in my
Yeah.
family really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just remember like I just showed up to practice every day and did what I was told and took the little things seriously. And then I just got better and better every year in college. And I think I just kind of like expected that. But then I was also very fortunate to just be healthy throughout college. So
Hmm.
I didn't, except for I had an accident in college, but except, I just didn't really have like stress fractures
Hmm.
or even really tendonitis much or anything like that. It was just like a natural progression. And then I saved all the injuries for post college. So
Mm.
yeah, but
And I think part of I'm foreshadowing a little bit, but I think part of what interests me about your move up to the marathon is that you know you were kind of an 800-meter
yeah,
specialist.
I know it's like
Like
not very common.
it was like the shorter the better for you. I mean, you've got wheels. I mean,
Yeah, thanks.
you're very fast. You've probably got lots of type 2 stuff going on in your muscle fibers. So yeah, for those who might be listening to this live or on recording who don't know a lot about your history, you know, did you like the shorter distances because they were shorter, or because like
Yes.
they seem to fit your like talent profile?
I don't know. I mean, I guess like to backtrack a little bit, in high school, my first track race was a 200-meter indoor. And I think I ran like 27. And so that was just like, just being a kid and like
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like didn't really know what to expect. But yeah, I mean, I think like, which again, 27, it's like good, but it's not like, 200-meter, like that's not like top end speed. But um, yeah, like I I just really liked the 800 because it was short, honestly. Like because I mean, I would say as a cross country runner, like I did make like the national traveling teams, but it was not my forte in college.
Mm-hmm.
I was All-American one time in cross country my senior year, but I think that was because I had finally like matured and I had just had more mileage under my belt, but it wasn't like I was recruited for cross country.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I ran the 800 mostly through college, and during cross country season, I could not wait for track season because I didn't have to run that far, But then my senior year I focused on the 1500 and the 800, and I also ran the 3000. So it just kind of seemed like more of a natural progression for me. But I do remember my college coach trying to convince me to run like the 5,000 and the 3,000 because I had always been good at tempos, but I was just like, I can't even conceive of running that many laps around the track. So I don't know. Like, I mean, like people can tell you, but you just sometimes you have to experience it for yourself. So like, I don't know. So, yeah, no one told me I'd be running a marathon though until like last year. So.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're coming to that soon.
Yeah.
So after post Baylor,
Yeah.
did the same pattern sort of repeat itself, where like you go from walk on to All-American to like the pro equivalent of walk on to successful pro?
I would say like yes and no. I mean, I think like up and through college, I just kind of had this naivete about like I just didn't know, I just thought, oh, like I should just be progressing every year, but I'd never dealt with like much adversity or like injuries or anything like that. And so I think, yeah, like I did sign um, a pro contract after my first year as out of college. So it was kind of like a semi-pro. And then I ran pretty well in the 1500 and like I made the finals my first year as I'm out of college at USA's in the 1500. And then I got like a really small contract with ASICS was my first one. And yeah, and then so basically from that signing, I had some like pretty consistent years. And then I just ran into like a slew of injuries where it started with I tore my psoas muscle, which is like it's a stability muscle. Like I think it originates here and then it like inserts into the back. So it's like, I don't know. So that just caused a lot of like chain issues where I just like couldn't stay healthy for longer than a few months. So I'd put together like, promising training or like feeling like myself. And then I would go like months of like not being able to really train because it just those like core stabilization muscles, it just kind of tends to, you're just running off. And so that honestly was probably like, I think it was like 4 years of just like not being able to get consistent training. And in those 4 years, like that's when I PR'd in like the 800 meters. Like that's where my PR was. But I just was getting so burnt out of doing like the same thing and still getting hurt. And then I honestly just kind of took a year of like not really competing that much and just like trying to figure out like why I keep getting hurt and then just basically just like running some mileage. So yeah.
When healthy and able to train the
Mm-hmm.
way you wanted to train during
Mm-hmm.
this period, what was your training style? Did it remain a little bit like kind of on the low mileage, leaning on intensity side?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, it's because at Baylor, I was very like, oh gosh, I mean, I probably was still like undertrained at Baylor as well. But it was more like just steady mileage and like bread and butter stuff like tempos and fartleks. And I just respond really well to that. Versus when I left Baylor, I joined a training group that was just way more like track speed oriented, which like I do have speed, but like I have to be strong to run really fast. And it was just like not quite as much endurance as like I really need. And so it was just, it was great for like people who are pure like 400, 800 athletes. But for someone like me, who's like, probably my strengths are more aerobic based, like, I just didn't know that or didn't want to accept that probably. Yeah, like, it just didn't work for me. Like we were on the track maybe, it just works for some people, just not for me, but like 4 times a week, we'd lift super heavy and it just was like, it was just too much. Like I just couldn't handle that. And so that's when I just, I mean, you can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting different results or like not to get hurt anymore. And so I just kind of had to take a step back and just figure out like, okay, like what got me to where I was really good. And it's just like being patient, like consistent training, not increasing your mileage or intensity too much too soon, things like that. And then I finally got to a place where, I was just feeling like healthy enough to like push the envelope a little bit. And so then that's when I decided, I was just kind of burnt out on the 815 and wanted a new challenge. And that's when I started to try the 3,000 and 5,000. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I can't help but wonder, given where you are now in your career, if it wouldn't have been in your best interest to go straight from Baylor to NAZ Elite, but that
would have been so nice. But I just didn't even know I honestly didn't even know about the team until so, but who knows? Yeah, that's a good question.
But tell us about that transition, how you ended up joining the team.
NAZ? Yeah, so I guess I had been training for the 5,000 and 3,000 indoors. Really from 2016 was my first 5,000 on the track. And so from 15, 16, 17, and 18, we did pretty well. Like I made quite a few national teams, not the Olympic team, but was still progressing, feeling strong. But it just got to a point where my reason for looking for a training group was I just was getting so tired of training by myself all the time. And I started to take altitude training camps starting in 2017. And the first place I ever came to train was Flagstaff. And I had known Ben Rosario a little bit because he's a St. Louis guy and I'm from Little Rock. And so they're like a few hours away from each other. So he had tried to reach out to me to recruit me to come run the St. Louis distance. Festival of Miles in St. Louis. And I never actually got to go race that meet at the time because for whatever reason, I think it just never quite fit into my schedule. But I'd like known of him. So when I came out here, I actually rented a room from Matt Yano, who was on the NEZ team at the time, and then reached out to Ben Rosario, and he just said, like, come join the team whenever you want for easy runs, like maybe some workouts. But then, I didn't really do that because I had my own workouts to do. But I came here and loved it. Had no clue I would eventually move here at the time. But then, every year since then, I went to a new place for altitude. So I went to, I did Vail, Colorado one time. I did Mammoth Lakes, California. I rented a cabin at 9,000 feet outside of Boulder one year, which was crazy, but one of the best things I've ever done. Just me by myself up in the woods.
That seems like an interview unto itself.
That was actually like the best. I missed that actually. And I just started to notice like it's like what I love so much about taking these altitude trips is obviously like the scenery is beautiful, running to new places can be refreshing, but it was more that I got to link up with friends and competitors I had across the country. And I was just so like excited when I got to go on these trips. I
Mhm.
usually did like 2 a year. And I was like, I get to run with this person, and then I was starting to think about that and I realized, yeah, like, I mean, they're my friends, but what's the real draw? And I think it was like for me, like I just get so much joy and I just feel like such a sense of purpose training with my running, at least like training with like other women, honestly, who have similar goals as me and mindset, because there's just something different about
Mhm.
like making that connection and then maybe going to battle, I mean, against them, but also
Mhm.
with them.
Yep.
And so yeah, I started to realize like I just wasn't like enjoying being by myself anymore, just
Mhm.
training wise. And I mean, and like that's not to say like I was in Memphis, Tennessee during this time. Like I had a great community of runners, but I wanted like women that were competing at my level to invest in and cheer for as well. And so yeah, so then in 2019 I just decided like I just feel like I might only have a few more years in the sport and I just want to explore like what my options might be, and just say like I squeezed everything out that I could.
Mhm.
And to me that was I'm pretty sure I want to join a group because I want to be like a part of a group, part of something. And so I started the process of looking for the right fit. And I remember like 2019, the fall, I went to the US 5K champs, which is in New York City. It's always like a couple days before the New York Marathon in November. And actually, my flight got really delayed, and I got in at like 2 a.m. to my hotel, like 3 hours before we were supposed to be in the lobby
Oof.
to get on the bus to the race. And so I did not do that great because yeah, it was awful. But anyway, I don't know what, like, I was like, I saw Ben Rosario in the lobby, and I'd wanted to like talk to him about potentially like if there was a spot open on his team or to train with him or something. So I got his number and I texted him and was like, "Hi, I know it's New York and you're super busy, but if you have like 15 minutes, I'd love to talk to you about something." And then he met with me, and I remember I literally was like so nervous. I like sweat through my shirt, like trying like talking to him. And like not that he's like an intimidating guy. It was just like I was about to ask for something, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
scary to ask for what you want, and because people could say no. But yeah, so he met with me, and we briefly talked, and he was, apparently there was a spot that had just opened up because
Mhm.
I think it was Aaron Clark had just left the team to pursue more trail running. And so he had a spot, and he was like, how do you see this working? Like, would you do like a stint every like month or so and just have me train you? And I was like, no, actually, I think I would move, because if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to I want to just go all in and immerse myself and just see if, you know, like if it's a good fit and right for me. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was, yeah. So the first week in November, and then I ended up moving. I got here on New Year's Day, 2020. 2020. So, yeah. So yeah. So that's how I ended up here.
Right on.
Yeah.
So that transition, joining
A
NAZ,
gamble. Yeah.
joining NAZ Elite
Yeah.
is something I experienced myself, like in 2017.
Yeah.
And so like, I was like, a lifelong, competitive, recreational runner. But I trained
Yeah.
hard, and I had my way of doing things. And then I'm here for 13 weeks, and I'm doing whatever Ben tells me to do. You had your parallel transition, you know, and so what was that like? Because like, any good coach is going to try to meet you where you're at, figure out, understand what works for you, understand your preferences, but things are going to change, right? That's
Hmm.
kind of the
Yeah.
point. So what did change in your training in that transition?
Yeah, I mean, so many things change. And I think that was kind of like why part of it was a gamble, because I was like, I really love the team culture. Like, I think like Ben and I would work really well together. Like, the training's very different than what I am used to, but like, I want to give it a shot and see. And I didn't even know if I'd had like hemoglobin testing at stints before. So I knew I was a responder to a stent, but coming here for a stint is different than living here
Mm-hmm.
and training year round. So yeah, it was definitely a gamble. And I honestly think the first year I was here was probably like a trial period for myself and for the team to see like, am I really going to pan out, you know? And yeah, I mean, I would say like before I got here, or at least before I joined NAZ, my mileage was I still am not super high mileage, but it was very low. I think I was running like 50 to 60 miles a week when I was in at sea level. And I'd never done any double runs. Like, my long runs were probably um, 12 to 13 at the most. And so when I got here, it was like I pretty much had, like, I mean, Ben was good about easing me into it. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we had a very collaborative relationship
Mm-hmm.
as coach and athlete. Um, but yeah, like he eased me into like two doubles, every week. My mileage was higher. My long runs were consistently like 16 miles. And and think about that with the 7,000 feet
Mm-hmm.
versus I think Memphis is like 200 or something. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so a lot of things changed. But I responded very, very well to it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think I am one of those athletes who like and that's to say like, what if I had been here longer? I don't know. Cause
Yeah.
I think I have a cumulative response to altitude. Like, I do well just being up here and marinating basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even feel like I need to go down to Camp Verde or Sedona or
Mm-hmm.
wherever to like, I would have the same, like I just do better just consistently being up here
Yeah.
at 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
So
So with
yeah.
that, that new approach to training, did it make you better at the shorter distances? And maybe you're like a little more 5K focused than anything
Yeah.
shorter than that. Um, you weren't thinking about marathons
No,
yet, right?
no, no,
So
no,
so like that training
no.
actually, even though like you're running more, you're running
Yeah.
more often. It was designed to make you better at what you were already
Yes.
specializing in,
Yeah.
and it did.
Yeah.
But did it also make you discover the potential to
Yeah.
race, to move up?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so because I mean, yeah, I mean, and also like my workouts were way longer than they'd ever been before too, but I was like handling them very well. I think I'd just never done that before.
Hmm.
So I didn't know, and yeah, I mean, definitely like in 2020, um when I was with the first years with the team, I PR'd in the 5,000 and set the team record at the time, which has now been broken by Abby Nichols, who just joined the team too. But that record needed to be broken. It's 3 years old, so I'm happy she got it. But yeah, like I think definitely like I just had a different level of strength than I'd ever had before. Like, I remember a lot of my 5,000s when I was training more at sea level, I would get to 3K and just feel like I was kind of on fumes at that point and like holding on. Whereas like in that race with NEZ in 2020, I just felt like so strong. And it was like a pretty tactical race. And Kellen and I went 1-2
Hmm.
in that one. But um, yeah, I just felt like, yeah, like I wasn't like clawing my way the last 2K. It was more just like I felt more smooth and relaxed. But then, yeah, like I think Ben and also Ben Bruce kind of like planted a seed in my head that like you're doing more work than you've ever done. Like, you probably have a good crack at like a 10,000 or like a half marathon too.
Hmm.
And then so I just feel like maybe it's just also just getting fitter, feeling more confident. But yeah, like it just kind of seemed like a natural progression to go from okay, like you've run your 5,000 PR now, but the way you've done it is way more strength oriented.
Mhm.
So take a crack at these events, and those went well too. So
Yep.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's one thing to move up to the 10,000, but but in a marathon, like you've already run 20 miles when you
Have
sorry to
another
remind you of
10K
this.
to go.
You know the math, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm trying not to
yeah.
think about it.
So
Yeah.
like when and how did you make the decision to move all the way up to the marathon? And for those who don't know, which marathon are you doing, and how many days do you got?
I don't even know if I know that. So okay, so we picked the Grandma's Marathon as the first, as the debut, and it's on June 17, which is a Saturday. So I think it's like 4.5 weeks, 31 days.
But who's counting?
Something
Yep.
like that. I don't know. But yeah, honestly, like since I've been running, I ran my first half marathon in 2021 in December. And then I just ran the US half championship in February of this year. And I just feel like those have gone so well, which I know the half can be vastly different than the marathon. It's twice the distance, but it's like
It's more than twice. The
yeah, okay,
distance,
more than twice the distance
Don't
plus
be
the 10K. And so I don't know, like I'm honestly like I just am excited for a new challenge, and I'm really trying to not like overthink it. I'm trying to just kind of like take it day by day and hopefully mile by mile once I get to that Saturday in June. Um, yeah, like I don't know. I don't really like thinking too much about it because I just kind of I do better, especially like when I'm at practice and most of my races, like I kind of do better just approaching it almost like any other day, at least like mentally and emotionally, and then just going and trying to execute. Like I actually don't do very well when I have a lot of emotion
Yep.
tied to something. I more just kind of want to go in and just kind of get the job done, kind of. I don't know how I mean, I'm sure I'll have some emotion when I get there,
Yep.
you know, like I'll probably be nervous the day before, the morning of, but I do remember I don't know, I get a lot of like confidence and like assurance and calmness from just like executing day in and day out and just trying to just stay within that mindset. So you can't really predict how you're going to feel once the day gets here, but it's also like that's how I approached my half marathon, and I had really good success doing it that way. So I just don't know why that should change just because the distance is longer, and you know, so that's kind of how I'm approaching it right now.
That seems like a good, healthy approach.
I want to have some healthy respect too for it though.
Which I did not in my first marathon.
Yeah.
Or
Like
second.
I think it's good to feel like I'm doing the work, like it's going well, like I belong there, but also have a healthy respect as far as executing, like not try not to go out too fast, you know, and just being patient when it gets here. So yeah, that's kind of where my head is at right now, I guess.
So here's your opportunity for for those who you know are contemplating a similar move, you know, that first marathon. What are you doing? Is there anything you can offer that, you know, that has changed, you know, that is now specific to marathon preparation that you draw confidence from? It's like, okay, I've started doing this, and I think it's one of the reasons I'm going to have a successful first marathon.
I mean, honestly, like I'm not sure about like I don't know, I think for me, when I first started my marathon block, it just seemed like kind of inconceivable. Like I don't like I literally have not run over 19 miles ever, and that was like 2 years ago. And I think just like the more I've gotten into the training, and it's kind of been like stepping stones, you know, like I did 18 a few weeks ago, then I did 20 2 weeks ago, then 22, or sorry, yeah, 22 weeks ago, 22 this past Sunday. And like it seems daunting, but like thinking about just like I don't know, just like bridging the gap between these workouts is easier in my head versus I just kind of had to get into the training. I think like I'm feeling more confident about it and more excited about it as I like just get familiar with it. I think some of it is just like that kind of unknown, like how am I going to handle, 26 miles. I've only done 20, 18, whatever, but my 22, I was actually on my feet for 2 hours and 40 minutes. And I think I picked like probably the hardest route I could have in Flagstaff. And like, maybe that was good or bad, but now I kind of feel like I kind of know that was 5 weeks out, and I kind of know like how it feels to like be on my feet for that long at least. Whereas like I didn't really know that before. And yeah, it felt pretty hard. But yeah, just like in my head, just taking it like just chunk by chunk instead of just going, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to run 26 and like whatever. It's just been kind of like breaking it down to where it just seems more manageable in my mind. And I mean, and then the only other thing different has been like practicing fueling in races, which that seems harder to me than the actual workouts right now.
Yeah.
Just like not having my stomach blow up. But I think we've kind of started small with that too. Like I started with just water for a long run, then I already do that, and then I started with, and then I went to taking electrolytes on like a 10-mile tempo. And then I progressed to a carb solution during my first 20-mile long run, which I'd never done before. And then last week we did a carb solution every 3 miles for my 22. And then this week I have a 12-mile tempo. So now I'm going to try actual carbs while I'm actually running faster. And so it's just been kind of like a natural progression with some forethought before, So.
Bill, are you taking notes? This is
it hard for you, the feeling?
Just long runs. Long runs.
Long runs are the hardest thing for me. Like they're so hard.
I'm novice. I didn't know you were supposed to fuel.
Yeah, I knew, but I didn't really pay attention to it until like a few weeks ago.
I found out I was fueling wrong.
Oh. Uh-oh. Like too little?
Wrong stuff.
Oh, like protein?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And also procrastinating on the long runs because they were daunting. So that stepping stone approach, like this was all for you, Bill. Yeah.
They're nerve-wracking. I find the straight long run to be more nerve-wracking than the actual workouts, just because I think you're just out there for so long. It's just like the mental focus it takes. I think that's what's been like the hardest thing for me to get used to, even though the paces are a bit slower than like half marathon training, 10K. Like, yeah, it's just like just concentrating or being alone with your thoughts too for that long. Yeah. So.
Yep. So of the two, your half marathon PR is 69:46.
I think so.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So
somewhere in the 40s.
So I love these online calculators. So I went online, I punched that number in, and I just found, it's just one calculator's opinion, but some equivalents, for 800 meters and 2 flat 0.9. So is that faster or slower than your PR?
That's faster than my PR.
Exactly. How about the mile 4:26? Faster or slower than your PR?
That's faster.
Yep. 15:05 for 5,000 meters. Faster or slower than your PR?
Faster.
But not by much. None of these are by much, right?
No, it's just like a few seconds off.
And then 10,000, the equivalent is 31:26. Faster or slower than your PR?
Faster.
Yep. All faster. So this tells me you should have been doing this all along.
Yeah.
And then finally, no, go ahead.
Oh, no, nothing. You go. So
here's the cherry on top.
Okay.
So do you know what the marathon time equivalent for this is? 2:25:17.
That would be wonderful.
Does that sound pretty good?
I would be so happy with that. Yeah. And we haven't even talked about it's so funny because we have not even talked about how fast we think I can run, but I mean, you kind of know okay, your paces, and then I know that I have a pretty big conversion to sea level up here, at least from Lake Mary, just based on how half marathon training is gone, and then my halves corresponding. But yeah, it's really interesting too because like with the half marathon I ran in February, I ran like 4 seconds off my PR, and it was just a much harder course than where I set my PR. So it's like I don't even know. I'm just going with like whatever like get me in practice, and it feels hard. So
Yes.
yeah.
But it's looking good.
Yeah, I mean that would be
Google.
wonderful. If that was the debut, I would be very happy.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hope I get a tailwind at Grandma's. Because it's like a point-to-point race.
Yeah.
It's just like straight shot.
Mother Nature will decide.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, well, if it's windy, we know how to do that too, because I picked the windiest time of year to train for my first marathon.
Pile it on.
Yeah.
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 Any questions from our live audience? This is a great opportunity to pick the brain of a very high-performing, soon-to-be marathoner.
So who's helping you with your training now? Are you coming up with this on your own?
No, so NAZ, we have a head coach, Alan Culpepper. And so he's been coaching us since, I think he's been coaching. He came on to NAZ last summer. So I think it's been since maybe July. So like, I'm definitely not coming up with this on my own. I mean, I actually am also a coach. Like I do own my own coaching business, and I've had that for about 6 years. But I mean, yeah, like I have coached myself in the past and it's gone fine, but I love the luxury of just having someone like do the thinking for me, and all I have to do is show up and just do my best on the day. And so yeah, no, so it's Alan Culpepper right now. Yeah. Yeah.
So you do your long runs. It sounds like you pick the course and do it yourself. But do you have any
Oh, our team. So, I mean, we have practice probably like every Sunday. We get an email and it tells us where to be on what day. So it's like all of us, like, we usually meet for like workout days, 1 or 2 maybe easy runs that involve like drills and strides and core work after, and then our long runs. So like yeah, like I'm usually not by myself, and which is so great. Yeah, even though like I did this run so my first 22 on Sunday, the training had definitely caught up to me, and I felt so fatigued. And I was like, oh no. And so anyway, I picked this route called the A1 Lollipop, which is it's 20.8 miles. And there's just like this monster hill in the middle that is just like soul sucking. And I'd never done this route before. And I was like, oh no, why did I pick this for my first like really long run? But then like it was a bit demoralizing, honestly. Like I haven't had a run like that felt that bad in a while, but I think it might have been a good thing because like, I mean, the marathon, like I'm, hopefully I'm pleasantly surprised, but I'm expecting it to get really hard and to hurt at some point, and but no, like I had Kellen and Kellen Taylor, who actually has the course record at Grandma's, the one I'm gonna go run. It's really fast, and so her and Emily Durgan, who's another local runner for Adidas, and Abby Nichols on my team. And so they ran with me for the first 9. And then I did have the last 13 solo, but our assistant coach, Jenna Reedon, was crewing me. So these are like wide Forest Service roads. I'm not sure where you guys have run yet so far here, but
not yet. A1.
Oh, okay. Nope. A1. It's really hard. Yeah, but basically like she just every 3. So in the marathon, is what I hear. You get water, like fuel every 5K. So she was riding with us and just followed me for the whole loop, and every 3 miles got me water. And yeah, so like, I mean, and that's what's kind of cool about Flagstaff. Like, if you don't want to, you don't have to probably run anything by yourself. I like prefer to be with people the majority of the time, but sometimes I need solo runs. But for my long runs, I'm like, please, I want company, because I guess I could have brought like my headphones and listen to music or something, but I just feel like I'm not going to do that in my race. So why would I prepare that way? But yeah, it's like much more helpful to have just like people around me for sure. So
So what is the course record right now?
it's 2:24:28. So it's exactly, I'm pretty sure it's right at 5:30 pace. So Kellen, I think that was also the year, I think that was the Boston year. It was so cold, the one that Desi won.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then
She
she
like 6 weeks later.
yeah, because she got like hypothermia. She had to like drop out of Boston, like so many people did because of the conditions. And then yeah, she like regrouped and came back and then set our team record and the course record at Grandma. Because it's Kellen.
Yep.
You know Kellen.
Yep. That's not how the story was going to end.
Yeah. So it's good. No, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that A1 run, when things did start to get really hard, can you kind of talk about like, mentally how you approached that and how you got through it?
I think I just kind of said like, well, this sucks, but like, I mean, it might be like this in my marathon, so I just got to keep going. But also like, there's something about so I did 20 the week before, and I started to really feel it at like 18, where and it wasn't, I didn't have like a pace. I was just kind of running like what I felt was smooth, but I think just like the cumulative effect of all the training, all the workouts, like I feel like every week I'm like, this is the most I've ever done, and it's like every week I'm saying that, which is probably normal when you're doing your first marathon. But yeah, like I just got to 19 and also thought like, oh, I'm only 1 mile away from like the longest run I'd ever done last week. And then it was almost just like this new goal, like from 20 to 22, like, oh, you like, of course this is hard. You've never run this far before. So I was just like, I don't know, just thinking about it that way, just trying to like think of something to like be more motivating, and like, yeah, running somewhere new, going somewhere new is motivating to me. So that's how I got through that one. Yeah, it just wasn't like, it didn't feel easy at all, which is, I think it's good. Like, and then I've actually like talked to a lot of people in the past few days about that run, and a lot of people have told me like, I think it was great that you didn't feel good in that run, because like you're not supposed to feel great all the time, like especially when you're in marathon training. Like it's supposed to be hard, and like yeah, like if something doesn't feel, if everything feels too perfect, like you're probably not training hard enough almost, and within reason. um, but yeah, like I feel like that feeling I had it on that route is probably similar to how I'm going to feel. So I think it was actually a blessing. Um, just to kind of, I mean, it was much slower than I'm going to be running at Grandma's, but definitely like the effort was, I think, right. So
Can you take us to a normal training day as a professional athlete in the cycle? Like when you wake up, what you do in the morning before you run?
yeah, I mean, I really like my routine. If we, I guess it kind of depends, excuse me, depends on if we have practice that day. Like usually like right now, because it's getting a little hotter, we've started to meet at 8:30 when we do have practice. So like I like to get up at like 6:30, like about a couple of hours beforehand. And I mean, usually I'm in that statistic of Americans that makes a pot of coffee right when they wake up. So drag myself downstairs and do that. I don't really like have the same thing every day for breakfast. Usually it's like, I hate oatmeal. I'm sorry. I can't do it. It's, yeah.
Is it a
I know
texture
that's like
thing?
runners. I just think it's just boring to me right now. But then I'm just so weird because I've started to have like white rice, which is boring too. But like, I don't know, something about it. I just think it's more satisfying than oatmeal. I don't know what it is. But anyway, I'll have like white rice and like a banana, or like, I don't know. I'll make muffins for the week usually and just like freeze them and like pop them in the microwave. Anyway, random. But yeah, so I have breakfast. I play with my dog. I might read in the morning. I might write some training plans for my athletes, and then I go to practice, and usually that's 1 to 2 hours, depending on whether it's an easy run or workout. And then I come back and have second breakfast or lunch, or maybe go out with people somewhere for brunch. And then I'm a big napper. Like I have to set an alarm though, because I can sleep like no one's business. Like that's literally probably my superpower is napping. It's like, I don't know. I like literally can sleep like 9 to 11 hours a night and like be no problem. And yeah, like I kind of just spend my days like either hanging out with my friends or roommates or like working on my business. Um, yeah, and then honestly, like the days that we do not have practice too, I don't set an alarm the night before, and that's when I'll sleep like 11 hours a night. So, yeah. I just also like I can't stay awake up here either. It's sometimes I'm like kidding about the superpower, and sometimes I'm just so tired I just can't. But yeah, that's basically like I mean, yeah, like it's not like super exciting, but yeah, I love it. And then I have an Australian Shepherd, so I'll play with him, and yeah,
How many times a week are you guys doing strength
twice. Yeah, so I actually did that this morning after our easy run. And I don't really lift like super, super heavy. Like I lift like a moderate amount and mostly, so I also have chronic sciatica. So a lot of my lifting is geared towards just keeping that in check because that seems to be the source of the majority of my injuries last few years. And so like I just focus a lot on like weighted trap bar, like mostly deadlifts and then it's just like stability stuff like single leg balancing, adding weight, adding a mobile board, um, things like that. I do a lot of like mobility work outside of the of like our weight sessions too. Right now we're doing like Wednesday, Saturday, but they kind of let us move it around depending on like when our workouts are. I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe with my background and like, I actually have done a lot of Olympic style lifting, and I don't lift near as heavy really like as I used to when I was training for the 800, and so none of the weight like it. I just don't feel like for me personally, I don't think it matters when I'm doing these lifts because I'm just not doing enough. But sometimes you are just so neurally fatigued after like hard workouts that like sometimes I don't want to go lift like right after because I won't even be able to like balance, you know? So yeah, that's kind of up to our discretion right now, but twice a week typically. Some people do more than that. That's just what works for me, just twice a week.
Anyone else? Now is your chance.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Do you know exactly when your like marathon training started? Did you start at the beginning of this year, spring?
Yeah, I feel like as far as like my marathon specific workouts and probably it will so from grandma's, it would be like an 8-week block. So it's actually not super long. It was supposed to be 9. But that first week, I got some kind of bug that was going around and like I just had no energy and I was just like, I'm already pretty fit from my half marathon training. I'm not gonna start like my block right now. Just like kind of was like took a, you know, like ugh, yeah, I didn't want to do that. So I just kind of ran easy that week and just kind of kept some of the mileage up for me. But yeah, like I feel like I was that's when like my workout specifically started was 8 weeks out. But I was already it wasn't like I was starting from scratch. Like I'd already had like a really good base and like was already really fit from the previous training. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say, you know, like it wasn't like I just like took a huge break and then just like ran 4 weeks of easy and then started doing workouts. It's like more than that. So, you know, I guess you could argue it'd been, I don't know, way more 20. I don't know. I don't know, a lot. So
20 years in one respect.
I know, it's so weird. It's like so funny because like I've been like pretty high mileage comparatively to a lot of other pros, but now it's like I don't know, like now I have like this lifetime bank of mileage under me almost. But I'm still like, I mean, I hit my highest mileage last week and it was 85. So I know, I know so many marathoners run so much more than that, but it just for me, it didn't feel like it was like smart for me to just be like, oh, you have to run 100 miles a week. Like, I just don't think that, maybe I'll get there at some point in my career, but right now it just didn't really make sense to do that. So,
Yeah, that's enlightening.
yeah.
I ended up running a little bit more than that in my peak week of marathon training,
Yeah.
just as Joe Amateur, but you have to
Yeah.
tailor the training to you and not just put an arbitrary target out there.
Yeah. And I think like this is just my personal opinion, but I feel like 100 miles a week has just gotten this kind of like, that's like the standard, and like maybe I just don't think that everybody needs to fit that mold. And I don't think that I fit that mold. And when literally until like this past spring, I had only run like still like I might have hit 75 once or twice, even with NAZ. And so I just didn't think it made a lot of sense for me to jump from 65 to 100. Like, I think that's a good way for me to get injured, which if I'm injured, I'm not racing. So, if I'm a little underbaked, I'm underbaked, but I'm going to be on the start line. So yeah, that's kind of how I saw it. And Alan agreed with me. So I trust Alan. Like, I'm like, good, we're on the same page.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'm always preaching the virtues of discipline and restraint and judgment with athletes and sort of being the drum that like the pros make smart decisions. And you're exemplifying that, right? Just like
I hope so.
you have the time, you're surrounded by people who tempting you maybe to think that you need to do more, but still just like saying, no, I'm tuning all that out and doing what's right for me.
And I think that's kind of like, there's like pros and cons of being in such a running mecca, like Flagstaff, because I'll run with other athletes and like we talk about training, and I think it's very, very easy to like get sucked in or like second guess what you're doing. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I just think that's like more interesting. I'm like, that's cool. And then I'll still do what I'm doing. So, yeah.
Maybe that's your superpower.
Maybe. And I think it makes sense, maybe if I do this first marathon and I'm going like, oh, I just felt like really gassed at like whatever, then, we can adjust and like you can always like smartly add more later. But for my first one, I think this is perfect.
She's already talking about her second marathon, folks.
I hope. I already qualified for the trials. I better have a second one.
Okay, yeah, fair. Very fair.
They let you qualify with your half time, so I already have. So I'll be at, hopefully, I'll be at the trials in Orlando as well.
Right on. Well, we will be rooting for you in
you.
grandmas and beyond. Can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your Thursday
to
share with us. Thank you in the room for your questions. Thank you watching for taking part. And yeah, let's have a little round of applause for Lauren Hagans, everyone. All right. That is it for the debut episode of Live from Dream Run Camp, presented by 80/20 Endurance. Boom.